Welcome to Move the Chains with Jonathan Rivers. Here's your host, Jonathan Rivers.
Welcome into Move the Chains. I'm your boy, Jonathan. The Chain call sheet today. We're looking at the brand of college football. Now, this is a game that a lot of people love. I myself am a huge college football fan, as you know. But I think at this point, we have to understand that the brand of college football may be bigger than the game. I know that sounds crazy. I'm going to make it make sense to you when I talk about it in the first down. And on second down, of course, we've got social media questions. Are a two-time champion that won back-to-back in the last 4 years a playoff team in 2025? A lot of people don't think so, but I'm going to tell you why I think, in my opinion, they're wrong. Along with answer some questions about what team I think has to make the college football playoff, and on the surface, they've been good, but you've seen nothing but decline. And in my nonsense narrative, destination program. See, this is a term that I like to use not to signify necessarily the health of a program, but whether people want to go to the program regardless of certain circumstances. All right, all that and more right here on Move the Chains, but you know how we do it. Let's kick it off with first down. All right, so when I say the name brand, it is what do you think about when it comes to a team? What do you think about when it comes to a player? What do you think about when it comes to a coach? So the brand of college football, I also put into this conversation the business of college football because that's what this has become. I know a lot of people have been resistant to this, but it's here. The change is here, and honestly, it's not really the change, it's the accepted change because it's been going on for a long time. But when we talk about the brand of college football, I want to start here with coaches, especially Coach Prime at Colorado. I've got a graphic that I want to show you. So if you think coaching is just about winning ball games, you're dead wrong. Now, do I think winning is important? Absolutely. Do I think having an established brand supersedes winning? I do not. But do I think that having an established brand helps you win? I absolutely do. I want you to understand that, and you probably don't know this, but if you don't, Coach Prime just signed a 5-year extension for $54 million at Colorado. Takes him through 2029. Now, why is $54 million so important and pertinent right here? I don't know if it was done purposely, but if you look at the screen, Colorado had 54 million viewers in 2024. So let's say Coach Prime went to the athletic director and the board at Colorado and said, hey, I'll charge you $1 in terms of my extension for the number of viewers that you get in this season, 2024. $1 for a viewer. That's exactly what you're looking at in this extension. $54 million extension and 54 million viewers in 2024. Not only that, what is a college's, regardless of the sport, regardless of the athletic prowess, what's a college's number one priority? To increase enrollments. So if you're telling me that when Deion got there, applications increased 20% compared to 18 in 2023, and over 50% were those who are African American. I'm telling you, people not only see it as a party, they not only see it as a winning culture now, they see it as a destination spot because of Coach Prime. So if you're Colorado, whatever they did to bring Coach Prime into the fold, they've done a great job. And remember, a lot of people run the assumption, and I could have been in that boat, honestly. I thought, hey, when Shedeur leaves, Sanders might go. Why stay at Colorado? It's because he's building something. The same way he built something at Jackson State. The same way he built his brand when he was a player at Florida State and when he got to the Atlanta Braves and the Atlanta Falcons as a professional. He's a builder. And he's taken this program that was at rock bottom and put them on the map of relevancy. Do you know that the Alamo Bowl, where they lost to BYU last year, had its most viewers in the history of that bowl game? It's the Coach Prime effect. That's why Coach Prime equals prime time, and that's why we're talking about the brand of college football. But I've got another graphic that I want to show you here. When we're talking about the branding of college football, I want you to look at these recruiting rankings. Because, see, a lot of people seem to think that NIL has vastly changed how teams recruit and the capabilities that these teams have, or the ceilings of their recruiting prowess. So if you're looking at these teams, and the teams you see outlined in blue are the SEC teams, you look at Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, Ohio State, and then you've got A&M, Michigan, who won a championship 2 years ago, followed by LSU, Florida, right? Top 10. And then on down the road, you've got Miami, Penn State, and USC. I want you to look at these recruiting rankings. And now I want you to take a look at the top teams when it comes to NIL. Oh, did I mention Texas? Absolutely. Were Ohio State, LSU, and Georgia in the top 10 recruiting? Absolutely. Was Texas A&M, Florida, Alabama, were they there? Here's what I'm telling you. Recruiting still has the same monsters. Recruiting still has the same beasts. The NIL money has now, I think, exacerbated the opportunity for these teams to recruit at a high level, but these teams were already doing it. Georgia was already recruiting at a high level. Texas A&M and Florida, they were already recruiting at a high level. And I think because they were building their brand through their recruiting and through their winning, as we come back off the graphic, through their winning, they are now putting themselves in position to use NIL as an accomplice. Because I know a lot of people, like I said, when you bring in the money, everybody says, well, nobody cares about winning, they just care about the money. When money wasn't the issue, these teams were still winning at a high level. These teams were still bringing in the best 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. Now they're just bringing in the best 21, 22-year-olds via the transfer portal, and they're able to compensate them. And the irony is, in my estimation, I've said this before, now that you have NIL in the fold, and now that the brand of college football is so much bigger, and now that these college athletes are able to build their brand as collegiate athletes, they're more apt to stay in school, make money, develop as a player, and still build their brand, which is the best thing for the brand of the NFL, because you have players that are now more ready to produce in the National Football League. All right, so lastly, I've got another graphic that I want to talk to you about here. Major League Baseball has a farm system, right? It's called the minor leagues. The NBA has a farm system. It's called the G League. The National Football League doesn't have that. But now they have a de facto farm system, in my estimation, in the Big Ten and in the SEC. So not only do I think these teams are the two best, these conferences are the two best conferences. That's not something you can debate. Now, a lot of people still like to debate whether the Big Ten is better than the SEC because the Big Ten has won 2 straight national championships. That's all well and good. We understand that the SEC's had 59 draft picks, right, in 2024. I think the Big Ten had around like 42. These two conferences have won 8 of the 10 championships since 2015. 8 of 10, and the only other team to win it was Clemson. What I'm telling you is you're on your way to looking at the SEC and the Big Ten forming a super conference. That's just in my gut. I know that it's been discussed. I understand that the Big Ten and the SEC lead the conversation in terms of how many teams are going to get bids in the college football playoff. These things don't happen by chance, ladies and gentlemen. These things happen by power and influence. And what gives you more power and more influence in the landscape of college football? It is your brand. The SEC is a brand. They have their own network. The Big Ten is a brand. They have their own network. So what I'm telling you is the game of college football is phenomenal. But let's not be mistaken in thinking that the brand of college football may not be bigger than the game at this point in time. All right, when we come back from the break, Georgia, are they a college football playoff team? It's being asked, so your boy's going to answer. Back when we move the chains, right after this. Welcome back in to Move the Chains. And before I get to second down and answering questions, I always want to take this opportunity to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for the opportunity to host Move the Chains. Nothing's going to stop us. Nothing. I also want to thank the fans for the opportunity that they've given me in terms of watching this show, supporting this show, TikTok, YouTube, Sports Leader, WXTX, Fox 54. All love, and I appreciate it, and it's reciprocated. Hey, and last but not least, the best production crew in the business. Guys, when I'm telling you that we're up early in the morning, I'm sending stuff to my production crew, my producers, my directors, the YouTube team, the TikTok team, people who are making these videos. All of this stuff matters. So the growth of the show could not happen without the fine team that I have behind me. So shout out to the best production crew and team in the business as always. Hey, but now you know what time it is. It's time for second down. All right, so let's get to these questions, man. Like I told you, I scour social media, and I just look for people's comments. I look for questions that people have, and I want to answer them. So the first question is, will Georgia make the playoffs, the college football playoff in 2025? I'm going to say yes, man. And first of all, I'm going to get into what a lot of people have questions about. But first of all, I want to look at the schedule. Because one, I don't know what injuries are going to look like. I don't know what availability looks like. But you're asking me if all things remain equal, health is not an issue at this point in time. Let's look at the schedule. I think it's important, especially in college football. If you look back at what happened in the college football playoff last year when these teams have to go on the road, it's never easy, especially in the SEC and in the Big Ten and some ACC schools like Clemson. Georgia has Alabama at home. They've got Ole Miss at home. They've got Texas at home. I could argue that those are going to be the 3 toughest games, and they all happen in the confines between the hedges. Those things matter. Now, even if you look at a Tennessee game and an Auburn game, and you say we're going to split that, right? All I know is I'm not sitting here telling you what their record will be. I'm not giving you over, under. I'm not giving you best case, worst case scenarios. Those will come a little later because spring practices are about to conclude and these spring games are about to happen. What I'm telling you is Georgia is in a fine position to come through and make the college football playoff. And listen, I understand as we come off the graphic what these things look like. I understand they've got 15 draftable players. Georgia has 15 draftable players from Xavier Truss to Mikael Williams to Jalen Walker to Arian Smith. The list goes on and on and on. Yes, they're going to have to replace a slew of starters. But I've said this before, and I think it's more paramount that I say it now. When I said Georgia is the new Alabama, how many times did you look at an Alabama team that lost 12, 13 players to the draft and you necessarily didn't know, unless you're just an Alabama fan through and through, you didn't know who the next man up was going to be, and the next year they're going to win a national championship, or the next year they're 11-1 playing for a national championship. That's what you're looking at here. And it's not if Georgia is depleted. I understand, hey, they lost Carson Beck. They don't have a quarterback. When they won 2 national championships, they had Stetson Bennett, a seasoned quarterback. All that makes sense. I don't know what Gunnar Stockton's going to be. I don't know how he'll do this year. But what I do know is Georgia will have the recipe to win if they so choose. They will have the horses up front. They will also have a good defense. Now, there will be a lot of replacements outside of guys like C.J. Allen. There will be replacements there. When you have 15 draftable players, you're going to have to. But they will be in position to win games. And I think they've got their toughest 3 games. As I see it right now, that could change. But they've got the toughest 3 games at home, and I think that bodes well for this Georgia Bulldog team because of all the changes that they have. All right, what next question do we have? What team has to make the college football playoff of 2025? Man, it's the USC Trojans, and if you think I hate USC and Lincoln Riley, I don't. I just like to call things the way I see them. I told you last year that this team would be mediocre in the Big Ten, and they were worse than mediocre. And if you look at Lincoln Riley's resume, you'll say, well, man, what, he's 25 or 26 and 14 at USC. He's got a winning record. Absolutely. 11 wins in his first season. 8 wins in his second season. 6 wins last year. What do you see? I see digression. I don't see progression. I also see you losing Juju, one of the top players, not just quarterbacks, but players who reclassed in college. You had him for a couple years committed, and then you lost him to Colorado, whom I talked about previously. Right? It's not a coincidence because the USC brand is not what the USC brand was under Pete Carroll with Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and all those guys. It is not the same. So if you're Lincoln Riley, you need to win. You're in a more difficult conference than you were in the Pac-12. Recruiting is not through the roof. They're like 15th or 16th right now, which isn't bad. It's just not elite. If Lincoln Riley isn't able to turn it around and fix what always is giving him problems, and that's the defense, you may say Lincoln Riley was one of the best offensive coordinators to ever see the game, one of the best developers of the quarterback to ever see the game. I agree with that, but he's just not a good head coach. And I won't hold that against him because everybody won't be a great head coach. He's good, but he's not great when it comes to his head coaching job, and USC has to use the lure and the brand that they think they have and try to build this program because all I've seen is digression, and this program is not where they want to be. All right, what's the final question we have here? Is James Franklin the Mike Tomlin of college football? I think this is a legitimate question. I think it's a true statement. And I don't necessarily mean it as a negative. Now, James Franklin hasn't won a national championship the way Mike Tomlin has won a Super Bowl, but the thing about it is the way that they build their teams. They build their teams to always be top tier defensively. They make it hard for teams to score, but a lot of times it's hard for them to score as well. So when it comes to Mike Tomlin, he has less advantages in this, in my estimation, than James Franklin because Mike Tomlin has to sit there and draft and develop through free agency, and there's a cap. With James Franklin, he just has to understand that now via the transfer portal, I got to do better in NIL, I've got to do better in recruiting, and I've got to try to make my offense that much better. He had one of the best offensive players in Tyler Warren. He had great players. He just hasn't been able to bring himself to that elite level coaching staff. If you said James Franklin was a top 10 coach, the season comes about, but he and Mike Tomlin are one and the same. Fans love them because they win, but every time they don't win a championship, they're ready to get them out of there. All right, when we come back from the break, destination programs. You'll think every team in the SEC is considered a destination program, right? Well, I'm going to tell you why 2 teams in the same state are not destination programs. You may disagree with me, but you got to love to hate me. All right, back with my favorite segment of the show right after this. Welcome back to Move the Chains, and I don't think I need to delay it any longer. It's time for my favorite segment of the show. It's time for my nonsense narrative. Newsflash for everybody here. The SEC is king when it comes to the South. I understand. I think nationally they're king. But Alabama and Auburn, I just want to let you know, they're not destination programs. Now, why am I talking about destination programs? It doesn't mean they're not good programs. I think Auburn is in a transition. I think Auburn is not necessarily a good program. They have good resources, but they're not a good program. They haven't been winning enough to be a good program. But Alabama is the key here when you're talking about destiny. Everybody says, what are you talking about? They've won all these championships under Saban in their history. Yes, they're a historic program. And Saban built the brand as we know it as Alabama. So Saban was the designation of the destination, but he's no longer there. And if you were to tell me that you're looking at a squad like Miami or a destination like Miami, a destination like Florida, a destination like Ohio State from a branding standpoint, I just don't think Alabama is considered a destination for players. Because, see, players can go build their brand easier in the state of Florida, in the state of California, in the state of Texas, even in the state of Georgia, along with those type programs. Now, if you wanted to ask me if Alabama's a destination program for coaches, yes, it has been, especially, but that was still under Saban. So, guys, the reason I brought up Prime earlier in terms of Coach Prime was because Colorado is now a destination spot because he is the influencer. Alabama does not seem to have that influence the same way they did. When you lose guys like Caleb Downs and Elijah Pickett, two top-tier program-building players, they're no longer on your roster in the past 2 years now. Alabama is a good program. Alabama has been a great team, but don't get that confused with a destination program, because to be a destination program, the brand has to be involved in terms of these young men, transfer or high school, wanting to go play outside of the realm of just winning, because we're in that age where winning matters, but brand matters as well, and to some kids even more. So like I said, location matters, history matters, winning matters, but when you even have programs like Miami that won more than Alabama last year, I just think the Crimson Tide and the Auburn Tigers are good programs, can definitely be contenders in the SEC and in the national landscape, more so Alabama than Auburn, but I wouldn't consider those programs destination programs at this point. All right, when we come back, it'll be the final segment of the show. Back with the final drive right after this. All right, welcome back. It's time for the final segment of the show, which means it's time for the final drive. I'm going to tell you what, I don't think there are a lot of places where college football reigns over the NFL, but when it comes to the spring games compared to NFL preseason, I don't think there's any comparison. College football spring games are phenomenal. I think they're phenomenal not just because you get a lot of kids on campus early to be able to develop, but because the spring games are also televised in a manner in which there's that competition even though the game doesn't count. NFL preseason games, I feel like I'm just ready to get them over the beat. All right, don't forget, you can not only catch Move the Change right here on the Sports Leader, WXTX, Fox 54. You can also catch us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's at Move_the_Change. Like, subscribe, comment. It's growing every day, and we're here for it. Hey, another banger. Like I said, Move the Chains is in the offseason, but we never have an offseason. For the best production crew in the business, I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers. Always remember, build every day brick by brick. And don't ever forget, until right here on Move the Chains, God bless.